Hi, I'm Edward, and this is a quick overview of my wavetable synthesizer. So I wrote this program in C using raylib and lib_sound.io. It has 4 oscillators per note, up to 12 voice polyphony, and a biquad low-pass filter that I copied from Piazza. So I'll start off by showing you the first 3 oscillators with the last one turned off. You can adjust the levels using the keyboard, and I'm also playing notes with the computer keyboard, by the way, until you're just left with like the sine wave by itself. Next, I'll show you the filter. So you can change this frequency value. Pretty fun to play with, and then also like the Q value. And the last thing I want to show is the ability of this synthesizer to emulate real instruments. So right now I have loaded in here a recreation of trumpet.wave that we used in the assignments. So I'll start playing that. Little jazzy melody. Yeah, and that works with the filters as well. So how did I, recreate this trumpet sample? Well, I wrote this Python script that will convert a .wave audio file of a recording into a wavetable that you can input to the program. So now I'm going to run that script and we're going to see how it works. So first of all, you get just like a little overview of the input file. So like this is what it looks like if you put it on Audacity. This is like the spectrogram, and this is what we perceive the frequency to be over time. Now this perceived frequency is important because what this script is essentially doing is it's extracting one period of the waveform, and then you get one period and you can repeat it over and over. And that's like how it works pretty much. Now we're going to look at like the result. So this is like the result of the extracted wavetable. And if you watched the preview closely in the actual synth, you could see it was kind of looking like this. So next, I'll do a comparison between the original trumpet and my recreation. So on the left, we have the original trumpet sample, and on the right, we have mine. And as you can see, this graph shows like the wah wah sound of the trumpet. So as the sound comes in, you can see there's kind of like a curve to it. So the lower frequencies are first, and then the upper ones come in. So it's like wah, which is what gives it the distinctive sound, right? And we see the same thing going on the end, but we don't get that in the recreation because we're only sampling like one period. I think this would be possible if we had more modulation options. So I'm thinking like we could use a ADSR envelope and attach it to the frequency of the cutoff, the low pass filter. And then as the note kept going on, the filter would open up and close down. I think that would be cool because it would allow us to like recreate the sound, like more elements of the sound, without necessarily using more space for more samples or something like that. And this is the combined view. As you can see, when we're playing the same note, the frequencies, the harmonics line up very well. There are some extra harmonics here. I noticed that my script was getting like half of the correct frequency of the sample. So I think that's what's going on here. I like go on more about this in the actual report, but yeah, it's not perfect yet. So next, I'm going to show you an example that I did where I wanted to see how like low resolution sounds looked. And like, so I rendered a sine wave at different resolutions. So here's like 16 samples, 32, 61. I just did this one because I thought it would be cool to have like a prime number just to like throw stuff off. 64, 128, finally full resolution. And I pre-loaded this slide because it took a really long time to generate. But as we can see, we have 16 samples per cycle at the top, and there seems to be a lot of overtones in this. So the way I recorded this is I played like a C, and then C, E, G, like a chord. And as we increase the number of samples, the number of overtones decreases. And this makes sense to me. You know, like when we have a low resolution, we have a very jagged waveform. It's kind of like in class when we were approximating the square wave using the Fourier sum. Like the more square you wanted your wave to be, the more harmonics you needed. And then so it also makes sense that as like the sample gets smoother, you'll need less harmonics. One thing that I found interesting was that if you zoom in here, I can't do it on this, but at each like line that you think is one line, it looks like one line, there's actually two lines going on. So I wasn't able to pinpoint exactly what caused this, but I think it has to do with like a harmonic that's above the Nyquist frequency that then gets like flipped back over past like 22,000 hertz or something. Yeah, the last thing I wanted to talk about is that we can kind of see that there's like 1, 2, 3, 4 here, 2 here, and like 1 overtone here. I thought it was interesting that like as you double the number of samples, you have the number of harmonics you have. And it looks like doing an odd number, like 61 versus 64, it didn't really make a huge difference. Yeah, that's my project. Thank you for a great term.